My name is Kerrie, and my goal is to inspire healing and meaning in all areas of life. In this podcast, we will dive deep into conversations. From heartbreak to freedom, we will explore different self-care modalities, learn to be the best expressions of ourselves, and to live with purpose. I'm here to offer my personal insights and to share my story in hopes that it will guide you on your path. This is Heal with Care, a journey of self-discovery. I clearly remember Spirit nudging me as I pumped up my stand-up paddleboard. What about that guy? I had just broken free from a long-term relationship, and I decided it was time to let go and move on with my life. I was in no mood to begin dating. My sister was already calling up her friends, trying to play matchmaker. People were telling me to get back out on the dating scene and asking me if I had set up my online dating profile. I was fed up and I just wanted a moment to breathe and taking this newfound freedom. I was stubborn and all I could think about was I'll date when I'm good and ready. Plus, I'm not the type of person who would create an online dating profile. Call me old-fashioned, but I prefer to meet people in person and have a natural connection. Now, I don't know why I decided to do this, but the first few days after my separation, I was still heartbroken and still holding on to hope that things would get better. Even though I had hoped things would fix itself, I began creating a list that I called My Perfect Partner. This list had all the attributes of my ideal man. I now knew what I wanted and what I was missing from my last relationship. I was very clear and detailed with what I knew I deserved moving forward. My list did not include anything about my future partner's physical appearance, but it really focused on his personality and the qualities he would have. For example, someone who I was compatible with, who valued family, treated me with respect, he was funny, and he enjoyed doing activities with me and also on his own. I also included someone who I could have deep conversations with and someone who was supportive of my passions. I was creating a clear picture of the best friend and partner that I truly wanted in my life. I'm not going to share the details of my list here on this podcast because a lot of it is very personal, but anytime I thought of something, I would add it to my list. I have to admit this list was long and very detailed, down to his family members. It was something fun that I had created for myself to do to make me feel better in those moments where I was hurting. It was a list that gave me hope for something better in the future. I had told some of my close friends about my perfect partner list, and for some strange reason, I was confident that this man would find me. One day at work, I felt compelled to share my story with a coworker. She told me that they had gone through something similar and had actually found her husband after creating a list similar to mine. Hearing her story inspired me. She was living proof that you could ask for what you truly wanted. She suggested that I also make a list of boundaries, which felt like Spirit was giving me the next piece of the puzzle. I decided to dig deeper and added my list of boundaries, like any non-negotiable habits I would not tolerate in my next relationship. What I didn't realize I was doing was that I was telling the universe exactly what I wanted and calling my future closer to me. When I created this list, I wasn't interested in starting a new relationship or dating. It was simply part of my healing process, and I was envisioning my perfect partner, and I truly believe that someone with these attributes were out there. I just didn't know what he looked like. After I decided to fully let go of my last relationship, all I wanted was to have fun and to feel like myself again, to get out and meet new people, so I joined a couple of social groups that met up in person. A few years prior, I had joined a photography meetup and I took a chance and went on a road trip with a bunch of strangers. The moment I got in the car and introduced myself to these people, I knew I was going to be okay. We all spoke the same photography language, we could share our experiences, and we could help each other improve our photography based on our learnings. There was something liberating about hanging out with random strangers with similar interests. Felt like the perfect opportunity to meet friends and to start from a clean slate. Because I had good experiences with different in-person meetups, including my trip to Costa Rica, The appeal of hanging out with strangers with similar interests in common really appealed to me. I was ready to go out and interact with the world again. What I loved about this idea is that these new people didn't know about my relationship history, they wouldn't feel sorry for me, and they weren't trying to set me up with anyone. It was purely casual, and I was simply there to have a good time. I decided I wanted to start stand up paddleboarding, so I joined several Facebook groups to find people who would paddle with me. I met up with a couple of people, and then one day I decided to attend a local meetup. This meetup happened to be a quieter weekend with just a small turnout. I ended up meeting a couple who started this group, a friendly, social, and personable husband and wife. We had a great time paddling, and when the three of us stopped for lunch, our conversation got a bit more personal. They were so easy to talk to that I ended up sharing some of the details of my love life. Instantly, they were eager to help me find love. I knew I didn't want any help, and I didn't realize this couple was the type to play matchmaker for people in the group. Even though I kept telling them I didn't want to date, they were really trying to convince me that life was short and that I needed to get back out there. The following week, they hosted another meetup. I showed up to the venue with my inflatable paddleboard, and as per usual, I began manually pumping up my board. This was my time to warm up my arms because I didn't want to invest in an electrical pump. So as I was pumping up my board, this guy came rolling around the corner with a paddleboard on the roof of his car, and he got out of the car and made a comment that made me laugh. And that's when my guides chimed in. The moment I had laid eyes on him, my spirit guides gently nudged me. What about this guy? I immediately pushed this thought aside, convincing myself that I didn't want to date the first person that I saw, and assumed that he was probably already taken. On top of that, he had mentioned that he lived 2.5 hours north of the city. And I thought to myself, I don't do long distance relationships. So I didn't give it much more thought and I moved on, not expecting anything to come of it. That day, I remember how easy it was to talk to him. We seemed to be on the same page, both eager to get out on the water, while the rest of the group socialized. We both made the first moves towards the water and got the rest of the group going. During our paddle, we raced around on the paddle boards, him taunting me from behind, both of us being slightly competitive. We laughed and we had so much fun. When we took a break, he was sitting close to me on his paddleboard. I didn't want to make it seem like I wanted to just sit next to him, so I made extra effort to keep my distance. When we got back to shore, I was deflating my board. The husband of the organizer of the group approached me and suggested that I try dating this guy and made it very clear that he was single. I couldn't believe he was seriously trying to play matchmaker right now. I remember telling him, no, go away. I don't want to date right now. Then he told me to keep an open mind. At that point, I knew that Spirit was inspiring and encouraging him to push me by answering all the questions that I had going on in my head. From what I can tell off the bat, this guy seemed like a very nice guy. He was decent. I didn't know much about him. All I knew was that he lived far away, and there was no way I was going to throw myself at someone who lived far away. But I decided to keep an open mind. We all went home, and later that day, I posted a couple of group photos I had taken during our time out on the water. That guy commented on one of the pictures and then asked how he could add me to Facebook. Since my profile settings make it tricky for some people to send me friend requests, I decided to add him myself. Usually, I am very selective of who I add as a friend, but in this case, I did not hesitate. A week later, I posted a picture of me and my dog Lexi out on the water, and that guy commented on my photo, which sparked a longer conversation between the two of us. I felt this subtle nudge to keep talking to him, and the thought of keeping an open mind and knowing that he was single definitely got my attention. The more we talked, the more I started to notice that he was beginning to check off the items off my perfect partner list. I could feel my heart beat faster as the conversation got deeper, and I couldn't believe what was happening. I even caught myself getting excited to carry on the conversation and wanting to stay up all night messaging him. At some point in our conversation, he invited me to go camping with him. He was already planning this solo camping trip because most of his friends are not campers. And I love camping. And one thing on my perfect partner list was that he would enjoy camping. With no questions asked, I told him that I'll meet him at the campsite if I could find a sitter for my dogs. The next day, I had found a sitter and I was all set. When the day arrived, I dropped my dogs off at the sitter and I drove about an hour and a half to the campsite. I was excited, but as I got closer, I started to question myself. What are you thinking? Here I was going to a campsite alone with a guy who I barely knew. I had to give myself a pep talk, convincing myself I wasn't completely crazy. And I told myself, he seemed like a really genuine guy when I met him. Plus, I've been taking Muay Thai for years. I'll be fine. When I finally pulled up to the campsite, he came out to greet me, and my first thought was, if you act weird, it will be weird. Just be yourself. I got out of the car and I said hi and I gave him a hug. Within the first 5 minutes of talking, he shared a few random facts with me, and in those moments, I just knew we had a connection and that this could potentially be that person on my perfect partner list. A sense of calm washed over me, a deep feeling that this was going to be okay and that I was going to be okay, and I was moving into the next chapter of my life. The moment I had let go of that long-term relationship, I had made space for the universe to bring a new love into my life. I don't believe it was a coincidence. It was purposeful and brilliant. As my partner and I reflected on that day, he told me he had actually planned to go to a different event on the other side of town. But at the last minute, he chose to attend the event that I was going to because of a major sporting event that would cause heavy traffic on that side. What I learned from this experience is that you need to be clear about what you want, and when the timing is right, the universe will deliver. If I hadn't fully let go of my last relationship, I don't believe this new connection would have come into my life. The signs from Spirit were loud and clear, and the encouragement from the people in the paddling group helped to bring us together and guided me in a direction I never thought was possible. So if he never made that comment about me and my dog paddleboarding, I would have never struck up a conversation with him and started texting him all the time. Ever since that night at the campsite, I had given him my phone number, and we've spoken on the phone every day since. And today, a couple of years later, I've now moved 2.5 hours away from the city to be with him. There were just so many signs from the universe nudging us to take that next step. So here I am on the other side of heartache, stepping into this new chapter of my life, knowing that the universe or spirit has led me here. Sometimes we think we're just making a list, dreaming up our ideal partner, but maybe the universe is listening and waiting for that right moment to bring you exactly what you need. Meeting him wasn't a coincidence. It was the universe responding, reminding me that I have the power to create the life that I desire. And when the time is right, everything will fall into place. We just have to trust that it will. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you found this episode insightful. If you feel called to, please share this podcast, subscribe to it, and leave a rating and review. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can email me at healwithcare@gmail.com or follow me on Instagram at healwithcare. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.